PR can be that adrenaline shot at the end, that gets this thing moving. Some people do come to me and I have to tell them, you're not ready yet. Here's what I would like to see you to do. Focus on these things and call me in 6 months or call me in 12 months. It is not uncommon for me to sign a client 2-3 years after the initial conversation because they weren't ready. And I'm going to be honest with them if they're not ready.
Hello and welcome to the Philly Made podcast, the podcast where we build community by learning more about our fellow Philly friends in the business world. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here with a very special guest, Brian Hart, founder and president of Flackable, an award-winning public relations agency that represents financial and professional service brands nationwide. Today, Brian and I talk about how to maintain consistency with your marketing strategy, how to strategically incorporate AI into your work, and the importance of transparency. I hope you enjoy the show, and let's get started. All right. Hello, Brian. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Shannon, thanks so much for having me on.
I appreciate it. Alrighty. So first of all, can you just tell us a bit about Flackable and what you do there?
Yes. So it's a big year for Flackable. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. The genesis of Flackable. So we are a public relations agency, really focused on media relations. A lot of the clients that we work with are small businesses who it's not so much, doing crisis comms and whatnot. A lot of these are great businesses who are great at what they do, full of very smart people. But without us, they just wouldn't be in the news. So, a lot of what we do is make sure that we're getting them in front of their local news, industry publications, national news, to highlight their expertise and to give them a level of credibility. When I talk about media relations, a lot of people think publicity. Nobody has ever hired me for publicity. They want credibility. They want authority. They want relevance locally, industry-wide, and they want impact. And that's what we focus on. And the whole concept that we run with is called credibility marketing, where we're getting them credibility through positive news coverage, but then working with them to build in systems and strategies to systematically leverage that credibility once earned.
Fantastic. So what I was wondering is, how do you maintain consistency with the success of the strategy? Like, what is your process for figuring out what works for each customer? I know you work with a niche group. I know you specifically work with, you said financial businesses, I believe, right? Is it relatively the same because you work with a niche group, or is there a process that you go through that makes it uniquely based off each person or each business?
So we work with a lot of registered investment advisors. So these are independent practices, advisory teams working with families, helping them save for retirement, helping them send their kids to college, helping them live without, the immense stress and burden that finances can put on a family. They want to take some of that off that family's plate, with sound investment strategies, sound saving strategies that can give their clients peace of mind. So that's the majority. Now, when it comes to these independent shops, a lot of them have different growth models. So we want to make sure that we're catering the strategy and the type of press that we want to systematically produce for them. We want that to align with that growth strategy. Some of these firms grow by getting in front of these families and sending their message and bringing on new clients. That's one way they grow. But we work with a lot of firms who also, are looking for M&A opportunities to acquire other advisory practices. When you look at the wealth management sphere right now, there are a lot of 60 plus, even 70 plus year old advisors who have built great practices, but they need a succession plan. And they've got these families that they want to represent, and they want to make sure that when they retire themselves, that their clients are still going to be well taken care of. So for the clients that I work with who are actively looking for these acquisition opportunities, to be that younger advisor to come in and take over that book of business, for them, oftentimes we want to cater the strategy to getting them in front of their industry publications, because they want to be in front of other advisors and let these advisors know that they are actively looking to acquire books of business like that for those advisors who are looking to retire or move on to something else. So yes, there's no cookie cutter strategy. Of course, there are go-to opportunities that generally work for everybody. And because we're so niche, we do work with a lot of the same publications and a lot of the same reporters. But we're reaching out to new ones and creating new relationships based on what that client is trying to accomplish.
Incredible. So do you work with any, I don't know if it'd be considered the same phrase, but do you work with any startups, like newer businesses that are doing these things? Is there a different kind of strategy that you go about using that? Because I know credibility marketing, a lot of it is based off of trust. And when someone's new, I'm wondering what your strategy is for that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we do work with a lot of new startups. I do primarily work in financial services, and even more specifically, those RIAs that I just described, but not exclusively. Beyond that, I work with a lot of RIA adjacent businesses, which includes fintechs and fintech startups. Mm-hmm. Where their target audience is those RIAs that I work with on the other side. So with them, anytime you launch a brand new business or have created a product, a technology, or a service that hadn't existed prior, you've got to build some credibility behind it. Mm-hmm. Anytime you are pushing the status quo, credibility is everything. Everything. If people are going to take you seriously and if people are going to trust making that investment into your product, technology, or service. So with them, typically when I'm representing a brand new firm, that launch announcement that we do, you only get one opportunity to launch a business. Mm-hmm. You want to do it right. And it's a shame, some of these companies come to me after they did that launch, and oftentimes it was an unspectacular launch, and that's why they scrambled. And they were like, "Wow, we probably should have brought somebody on like this guy."
We need help.
Others do bring me on for the launch, which is always my preference. Because again, we want to make sure that we're being purposeful. We want to make sure that the messaging that we build around that launch is messaging that we can continue to hammer away at as we get them familiarized to the new markets they're going to serve.
That makes a lot of sense. So you think that your strategy, you would hope, is that you would start from the very beginning with them instead of afterwards? You think that's the best case scenario?
I do. Yeah. And, in those instances, absolutely. I want to make sure I'm working with them from the very beginning. But there are also businesses out there where I'll talk to them and I'll have to tell them, you're not ready yet. I'll look at their website. Listen, you've got, when it comes to your overall image and brand, you've got deeper pieces to focus on. PR is typically that final piece. Mm-hmm. Once you've got that brand established and whatnot, and you've got a strong brand and you've got some kind of visibility. PR can be that adrenaline shot at the end, that gets this thing moving. So no, some people do come to me and I have to tell them, you're not ready yet. Here's what I would like to see you to do. Focus on these things and call me in 6 months or call me in 12 months. It is not uncommon for me to sign a client 2-3 years after the initial conversation. Because they weren't ready, and I'm going to be honest with them if they're not ready.
That's good on you.
Yeah,
for sure too.
And listen, while I don't do paid media, we're doing organic. We are really earning news coverage. So there's no transactional piece to it on that end. I don't work for free, so I need to make sure that some of them they might have a cool message. But if they are going to be squeezing their budget just to afford my services month in and month out, I'm also going to tell them you're not ready yet. Because if they are squeezing their budget, they are going to have overly inflated expectations. Listen, every business owner loves their baby, and is proud of their baby and think it's the most amazing thing. But that's not always newsworthy. So I try to be real with them. If it's a little wealth management firm in Pittsburgh and they expect to be on the Today Show, within the first month, I'm going to tell them that's not realistic.
Yeah.
You run a great business. It's really cool. Okay, but it's not that level of newsworthy. So I need to make sure that we're speaking, from a centered, balanced, concept of reality.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's also, I mentioned before, but that's really good on you, not only to be honest with them, because it saves you a lot of work too, because if your efforts are failed because they're not there yet, then obviously it looks like you messed up also. But it's also really great to be honest with the business that, hey, like, I will represent you if you just take a little more time to grow.
Yep.
That's very good.
Yep.
And shameless promo, if you guys need branding, Penji can do that for you, and then you can come back to Flackable and get your PR. We'll work on that branding for you. But so because you work on the credibility marketing, what I was wondering is, how do you walk this line between being honest so that consumers trust a company, but also not wanting to share negative results? Because I know that trustworthiness is obviously really important, and people do sometimes, that no one wants to see negative results for someone that they already work with or want to be working with. But I know that a level of honesty is very important. So how do you kind of showcase that in a way that's digestible for audiences?
Mm-hmm. And just so I'm clear, so we're talking about communication to the public, or are we talking about internal communication between me and my clients?
I guess a little bit of both. It'd be nice to know about both of them.
Some of those. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in transparency. If you are going to work with a firm like mine, you need to be comfortable with transparency. You also need to be comfortable giving up a little bit of control. There is a control credibility matrix. So when you look at paid advertising, when you look a billboard on the highway, okay,
on Morgan,
there you go. Yeah, exactly. A billboard on the highway, you have full control over that. You can put the images, the messaging, everything you want on that. You have full control. You're paying for that level of control, but it's there. But everybody who drove by knows you paid for that. So you're not getting the credibility boost with it. And I'm not anti-billboard by any means. I've done billboards myself. You just have to be realistic about what it is you're accomplishing with that billboard. So a lot of control, not that much credibility. With public relations, if I get you a feature in the Philadelphia Business Journal, let's say, okay, these are true journalists that work there. So, they are going to do their own, they might talk to you, give you a full interview, but they're going to do their own investigating too. They're going to make sure that what you gave them is fact. And if what you told them does not align with the facts, they're going to report accurately. So you are not getting the control with that. They're not going to let you editorialize the piece before it runs or even preview it. So you're giving up a lot of control, but you're getting that credibility factor. And listen, if you've got nothing to hide, you have no reason not to be transparent. So that's that credibility control matrix that I make sure people understand, because some people come to me and they need such a level of control. There are some people, and they have every right to be obsessive about their brands. These small business owners, they have every right to be obsessive about their brands. But if they need to control every single element of how that brand's communicated, PR is probably not going to be something they're comfortable with. They probably are better off with paid advertising.
Because they don't have to show the bad parts.
Exactly. So that is the first part of your question. Now, the second part of it, communicating honestly with the client itself. I told you a little bit about how I go about that. But once we get into a campaign, of course, they want results. I want results. They want results. So what I do make available to them is I track every opportunity that we have. And I make that transparent to the client. Every opportunity I put in front of them is tracked. They can see it and they can see the outcome of that opportunity.
Okay, great.
I've come across clients in the past who will get good opportunities, but they're busy people and they can't accommodate them. News, it's called news for a reason. It's new. So sometimes when we have an opportunity to talk to the Wall Street Journal, you're not going to have 2 days to prepare because in 2 days, it's no longer a news story. You have to be able and willing to drop what you're doing and accommodate that phone call with that reporter, or they're just going to talk to somebody else who is going to make themselves available. So I make sure that we're tracking that, and if there is a lack of productivity, I want to be transparent about what I've delivered. I want to be transparent about what the client's been able to accommodate, and we can look at it together and have that honest conversation. Is the issue lack of opportunity, or is it lack of capitalizing on these opportunities? And I need to be honest, and the client needs to be honest. You don't like running into those situations where a campaign's not performing how you'd like, but it happens sometimes. And when it does happen, everybody needs to be honest and self-aware if we're gonna improve things and get them back on track.
Yeah, you need to build their trust too, so that it makes sense. If you're saying, hey, you need to be transparent, then obviously it's good that you are as well, because the follow my lead kind of thing, and then it builds trust on both ends. No, it's incredible. So cool. So this is curiosity purely, but have you ever had to save a company from a scandal? Like their business wasn't doing well because of something bad, and you are trying to make them look better by PR.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. When it comes to those situations, for many years I worked with a big property manager, and it was during the COVID years too, when there were there were people who weren't paying rent, and there were evictions going on, and it was messy, and nobody wanted to be in that situation. This is a great company who was very accommodating with the policies they laid out, and the flexibility that they laid out. But even with all that flexibility that they offered, there were still situations where people were not paying. And, these property managers, they're representing the actual owner. So they're caught in between and sometimes have to make, very difficult, decisions when they're in that situation. So yes, we had to do damage control. And in those situations, I love this client because they didn't have anything to hide. I mean, they kept receipts on all the communication. There were folks who went to local news and told a story that just wasn't true. They left out key details like months of notices that they had received and everything else. They left off. So when it comes, if you're doing everything the right way, if you are a business who operates with a high level of integrity, usually the truth is going to be your best friend. When I can just go to a reporter and give them facts that contradict the negative narrative they're being told, that's the best kind of PR. So in those situations, yes, I need the client to deliver those facts to me so that I can be proactive and make sure we're getting things cleaned up.
What about a business that is not like that? Say, so you said that they do have credibility and you're able to prove that. What if you're trying to save someone from something that they made a mistake on?
Yeah. So I mean, I work in the finance industry, but I do screening before I take on a client. So I'm not working. I'm working with Bernie Madoff, or I would never, I do due diligence before I'll ever sign a client. So one of the great things about these financial advisors that I work with is there is a website called BrokerCheck, where I can go in and see if they've had any regulatory complaints and the nature of those. And vast majority of the people that I represent, squeaky clean records. There have been some times where I've taken on a client where I've read it and I understand, because some of these complaints can be unfair. I've had people I've worked with who had marks, when the housing collapse happened, back in 2008, because one of their clients lost money in a housing investment. Well, everybody lost money in housing investments back then. It wasn't the advisor's fault. The advisor lost money too. In that, it wasn't negligence on their part. We had something unprecedented happen. I try to be fair when I check their records. And if I do see something alarming, because I have come across some that are really bad, where I'll politely tell the person, probably not a good fit.
Okay.
But I have that advantage because we do have a lot of transparency in a highly regulated industry like finance. Working with other folks, you can get a bad egg where you find out in the middle of a campaign that they might be conducting business practices that you're not comfortable with. I haven't had it happen.
That's really good. I wish you luck in the future that never happens.
Oh, yeah, but you have to be realistic. You have to be a good judge of character. Have to have good instincts. I'm now over 10 years into this company and have been doing PR even longer than that. So I like to think that my judgment and instincts are pretty good at this point.
That's really good. It's good to hear that you're not going to represent that at all. Like, I know that some people make mistakes, but grave mistakes that really impact people. That's not something that you always want to represent, especially if it wasn't something that is redeemable or understandable. So, in this new age of AI, I was wondering if you incorporate that into your work now at all, and if so, how do you use it to help? Or if you don't, do you think you might use it in the future?
No, I absolutely. It has become a pretty heavy part of our work processes these days. Now here, when we talk, I assume we're talking about generative AI. I mean, that's the shiny object that everybody's talking about. So I was uniquely built to integrate that in early 2023 when the technology finally caught up to its potential and finally became widely available to businesses large and small, a small shop like mine. So I was already built for it because we had already generated essentially prompts ahead of the technology really being there. So it actually fit very nicely into the work processes. Now with generative AI, I mean, my one warning is when you have great human writing talent and you arm them with that technology, you're probably going to get great writing at a little bit of a faster, more efficient, tech. When you give that technology to a bad writer, you're still going to speed things up. You're just going to get a lot of bad content.
Yeah. They're not up there yet.
So writing talent and ability has always been a big focus of my agency. Which is why, we're able to use this not as a tool. It's not replacing human writing. I don't know anybody who is in PR who has completely replaced human writing with this technology. And I hope we're a long ways away from that happening. And then from my knowledge and work with this technology, we are a long ways off. That is as awesome as it is. I mean, you still need an intelligent, talented human brain building the prompt, combing through it, doing fact checking. We've talked so much about credibility. If you're using that technology and publishing things that are factually incorrect, you are going to tank your credibility as an agency. You're going to tank your client's credibility if you're publishing that stuff.
Yeah, you have to check that no matter what.
I almost said a bad word.
It's okay.
Oh, bless all. I didn't ask you if this is PG or not. So.
It's YouTube. We have to be monetized. I'm just kidding. It's okay. Worse has been said. But yeah, no, I completely understand that. AI, I think a lot of people are worried. I don't think at this point it's really going to replace anyone. Um, I think that it's still a long ways away from being able to replace a whole person. And it might never happen. Knock on wood, depending on what the job is. But yeah, I think that also just not even just being correct entirely, even just having a personal touch. Like we even use sometimes generated emails for outreach and different things like that. But a lot of times those don't get the best responses. Being able to personally talk to someone as a person one-on-one and be able to, relate to what they do and how you speak to them, even having an email prompt that you use regularly doesn't always work. And I think that that's something that AI can never really replace, even as advanced as it might get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool that your model was built for that, though. That's a great way to integrate it. I would say a lot of people had to adjust to the new age of this if wanting to implement it. So it's great that you had these foundations.
Yeah, and I mean, this technology's been widely available for over a year and a half now. Well over a year and a half now. And I mean, last year you saw agencies scrambling to try to figure it out, because I don't think they anticipated it developing like it did and becoming available when it did. Caught me off guard. I knew this technology was coming, but it came sooner than even I expected as somebody who's been following it and somebody who's always been, a little bit tech forward, incorporating business intelligence, before any similar agencies were. I've always, strive to use technology to handle a lot of the grunt work so that myself, my team can focus on the human element of it. Any grunt work that I can automate or expedite through technology, that's going to buy me more time to focus on my media relationships and my client relationships. That's always going to catch my attention. I'm always going to be interested in that.
Incredibly helpful. Yeah, it is very nice. And I think even people who weren't prepared for it, I think almost everyone probably wasn't even hearing about it. I think hearing about it, you think it's kind of this like flying cars in the future concept, like growing up. You're like, oh, like, no, even though science is advancing, but it is something that kind of came out of, even though we saw it kind of developing, it seemed like something that was way further in the future than now.
Hey, yeah. Yesterday's science fiction's today's reality.
Exactly, which is insane. So, my last question for you before we get into the fun Philly questions, my favorite part. Did you so you have this marketing strategy that you is performing very well, and you specifically do it for this niche group of people. Do you or have you incorporated this strategy to lead to the success that you have today? So not just for your clients, but for yourself.
Yeah, I've always, when I launched Flackable 10 years ago, I'd worked at a big public relations agency up in New York, working with big national finance brands. And I got this vision. I had sleepless nights where I was waking up, writing ideas on a notepad that I eventually turned into a business plan because, I knew this credibility marketing, this whole concept of earning and leveraging third-party credibility. I knew it was exactly what this growing market of RIAs needed. And when I looked at the PR options available to RIAs back then, 10 years ago, I wasn't satisfied with what the market had to offer them. I thought I could come in there and really give them a powerful, fresh, new perspective and way of doing things. And that's what I did. So, that was 10 years ago. Now, when I did that, when I launched the firm, I was at my previous agency always a big believer in practicing what I preach. My Twitter following, this was like a 50, 60 person agency. My Twitter following, just when they hired me, their social media manager pulled me inside, and they were like, Brian, like, your following is bigger than our company's following and every individual that works for this company. She was like, you coming on just doubled our Twitter follow. So I have always been a big believer in being a thought leader and practicing what I preach. For years, I wrote a weekly column for Inc. magazine. I think that makes me a better public relations professional. The fact that I was reporting to an editor and I've experienced that I was the one interviewing other folks and writing these pieces. That made me a better public relations professional. I've been on local TV, especially in recent years, local radio. When I'm advising clients, I'm giving them multiple perspectives. I'm not just talking theory like a lot of PR professionals do, because they haven't been on TV before. I'm talking from real experience. I can empathize with them when they're getting ready for their first live broadcast appearance because I've been there. So I can give them next level advice. And they respect that of me, that they know that I'm a thought leader. I compare it sometimes to, would you trust, would your dentist have any credibility if they didn't floss? I wouldn't go to that dentist. I wouldn't go to that dentist. And yet you've got public relations professionals who brag. They say they're so busy working on their clients that they don't have time to do their own PR. That's like the dentist who doesn't floss. He's so busy cleaning other teeth that he don't clean his own teeth. I'm not going to that dentist.
It also gives you the opportunity to be much more personal about it because you have experienced it yourself. You are able to give advice that's not just research. You've genuinely been involved in that. Oh, that's really great. And that's like, I really appreciate that because I know there's a lot of professionals that, they might be great at what they do, but they don't have that personal aspect of being able to relate to their customers or their audience. So that's really nice. I respect that a lot. All right, so now that we got all the professional, the business related questions out of the way, my very favorite part of the show is our rapid fire Philly question. So this is not a quiz. You're gonna be great. Okay, so what is the first word that you think of when you hear Philadelphia?
Sports.
Sports. Okay, cool. Usually it's gritty, rocky. That's what we're going. All right, what celebrity do you think of when you think of Philadelphia?
Kevin Hart.
That's a new one. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, favorite cheesesteak spot?
Del Sandro's.
I live like less than 10 minutes away from there. Very good. I like Chubby's across the street too.
Yep, I'm a Chubby's fan.
Chubby's. Hey, my favorite thing about Chubby's is that they have a sign in the door that says "No boob money," all in caps. And
that sounds on brand. I didn't notice that, but that sounds on brand.
I've worked in a lot of food service and I've gotten a lot of boob money, so I think that's a great sign. Okay. What's the one small business that you frequent the most in the city?
Small business that I frequent the most. My old office was down on Walnut Street, and there's a place around the corner on Locust Street called Locust Rendezvous. One of my favorite lunch spots in the city. I was actually just back there this week.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. Okay, well, this might be the thing.
Us locals call it the Boo. But
the Boo.
The Boo, yeah. Locust Rendezvous.
Yeah, I live in Manayunk, and a lot of people call it the Yunk, and I don't know if I'm down for that. Maybe I'm not seasoned enough, but I don't know. It's a little funky. Well, maybe this might be the same answer, but where is your favorite place for a drink or a meal?
Yeah, so another lunch spot that I really like, I haven't been there in a minute. It's that Stephen Starr, the Dandelion.
I love the Dandelion. I actually worked at the Continental during college, so it's like right down the street.
Yep. When I have clients in town from a different city, we're setting up a lunch meeting. That's typically my go-to to kind of wow them and give them a good taste of Philly. So that would be lunch spot. As far as evening for a drink, Manionk's got so many great places. I'm up here in Roxborough, so I'm
Oh, great. Yeah.
not far off from you. And in Manioc, there's so many to count. The Manioc Brew Pub is fantastic.
New Brewing is great.
Especially in the summertime when they have the outdoors open. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, they have I think it's Tuesdays, they have a beer and a burger for like $12 or something. Like, okay, fantastic. They're a great place. All right, and then all of those news were really fun facts, and I will intake all of these food places. If you were to change something about Philly, what would it be?
Yeah, I root for development. I pay attention to commercial real estate, residential real estate. There's some projects in the works right now that I'm very excited about. So continuing to build, one of the things that's so unique about Philadelphia, I would say Boston is the only other city that I think really does a great job of this, is we do such a good job preserving the historic elements of the city while building new. Now, in recent years, we haven't been as good at building the new. So I want to make sure that the city is committed. Absolutely, we want to preserve the historic stuff, continue to do that. But I want to see some cool new buildings pop up too. I love seeing new businesses pop up in the city, new shops, and new experiences. With people not going to the office and getting as much, day-to-day human interaction as they once did, I think Philadelphia commercial real estate can benefit from more experience-oriented businesses. Get people out of the house, get people networking, get people to connect. So any development related to that, I'm going to be all for.
Yeah, I like that too. I think we have a lot of community events in Philly that are like pop-ups and different things like that. But I think for day-to-day kind of attractions, for lack of better phrasing, I think Philly is kind of a drinking food city as of now. And it would be really nice to see some more things that you can do that aren't just that. Although, drinking and food is great. No complaints. But I'm happy that it's got good food here. It's incredible. I enjoyed that. But yeah, it would be nice to have some more things to do that are outside of those things other than pop-ups and the different things. I do love that, though. The community is fantastic. All right, and then, speaking of community, what is your favorite neighborhood in Philly?
Favorite neighborhood? I do like, that Center City area that I just described, Locust, Walnut, I guess we can call that the Rittenhouse Square neighborhood, is fantastic. I love that we've got plenty of green space mixed in there, lots of cool, shops, restaurants. That Rittenhouse area would definitely be one of my favorites in Center City. And then outside of Center City, Roxborough Manioc I feel like it's finally back. They got the double whammy of the virus and those awful floods from a few years ago. Took businesses a long time to recover. This summer, business looks better than ever, in that area. Not too many vacant shops anymore. People are frequenting them. People are making money. It's very exciting to see that area as vibrant as it is this summer.
I agree. It's even, I know Main Street has been bumping for a while, but it's really nice to see Ridge Ave also being really frequented. I know that there were a lot of closed businesses there, like kind of right before I moved here, but since I'm closer to Ridge than I am to Main Street, it's nice that there's also events going on there. Like they close the street sometimes for different, where they put stands up and the flea markets and stuff like that. So it's like really nice to see because, Main Street sometimes is overpopulated. So it's nice to have something over here too. No one wants to go up the hill from being down there. I'll go down the hill, but so that's really nice. I appreciate it too. Well, that is all the questions that I actually have for you today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing about what you do and giving me some recommendations for Philly as well. That's always my favorite. And for everyone watching or listening, thank you so much for doing so. And please make sure to like and subscribe to hear more stories like this.
Shannon, thanks so much.
Thank you.